Hey guys, Kitti Minx here. This is going to be a combination of like a bit of a rant, but also just kind of a discussion of the news, especially internet news. So let's get started, shall we? Uh, First up, what I'm going to talk about, it's not in the title, but it's something important to talk about. There is a rumor floating around that YouTube will be banning creators from linking to Patreon and mentioning Patreon in their videos. I suppose this is because YouTube themselves is implementing a service similar to Patreon. However, this is my thoughts on it. If YouTube is against Patreon and they want to start their own service that's like Patreon, then they need to make it available to all creators, not just the ones at the very top that they really like, that are already advertiser friendly and make a lot of ad revenue. It needs to be available to everyone to use, and they can use the same minimum that that they use for monetization, but not be as strict about it. Like, you have to have a minimum number of subscribers. Let's say you have to have a minimum number of subscribers and a minimum number of views. That's fair. And the minimum subscribers for monetization is 1,000. That's perfectly fair. It's if you regularly make content and regularly make quality content that people enjoy, it doesn't take a very long time to hit 1,000 subscribers. But for it to be fair to everyone, they can't be as strict with that as they currently are with monetization. And here's why I think it's not fair of YouTube to do that in regards to Patreon. Because getting monetized is so hard, and so many creators are getting demonetized to the point where YouTubers with millions upon millions of subscribers and millions upon millions of views use Patreon, link to Patreon, and talk about Patreon, that creators need to make money, especially creators who regularly make content all the time on a regular basis. They work really hard and should get money for their hard work and get supported by their fan base at the choice of their fan base. I think it's short-sighted of YouTube to target and attack creators that utilize Patreon as a way to supplement their income, especially if they're demonetized or not monetized at all, which is my case. I find that to be incredibly short-sighted and unfair, because Patreon is not taking views away from YouTube. It's not taking money away from YouTube. The only money it's taking away from YouTube is money YouTube is not giving its creators by not monetizing them, by demonetizing them, and by not having a fair, similar service like Patreon available to all of their creators on the platform. At least creators that regularly make quality content that people enjoy. So that's my thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on this subject in the comments down below, because I feel like we can have a very healthy, constructive discussion about this. Now, the big meat of the story that I'm going to talk about is the censorship of Tumblr and Facebook, and what's likely going to be other social media as well in the near future. If you don't know, Tumblr, as of December 17th, is going to be banning blogs and content that they consider to be adult in nature. And this is arbitrarily up to Tumblr. They're already flagging posts that they consider to be explicit, and that's entirely done by their algorithm. And like any algorithm, they can be totally, totally wrong. I have artist friends with Tumblrs, and they post art that's completely innocent. That's just, let's say someone does art of Spock and Kirk from Star Trek, and it's completely innocent. It's just them, on the bridge of the Enterprise, just posed there normally. A picture like that gets flagged as explicit. Now, I'm not saying I saw a post like that flagged as explicit, but I've seen art of that nature flagged as explicit. And that, to me, is pretty ludicrous and goes to show that you can't rely on algorithms to determine content that is explicit and is adult. And I have a feeling that blogs that aren't adult at all are going to get hit by this change as of December 17th. I already know my blog is probably going to get hit. So if you follow my Tumblr, I'm sorry, but it's probably going to go away as of December 17th because it involves adult content, or at least it discusses things that are adult in nature, including my other job. So don't be surprised if as of December 17th, that blog goes away. I may make a backup blog on Tumblr that isn't as adult, but I really don't see the point. And it's just, to me, I'll explain later why Tumblr is doing this. But, and I understand why, but I still think it's ridiculous because the adult content community makes up a large portion of the Tumblr user base, and by getting rid of it, they are getting rid of a lot of their user base. So that is something that they really should be considering. Now, Facebook is trying to curb and ban talks related to sex and sexuality, including discussing your own sexual preferences in terms of what you want in a partner, whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, demisexual, whatever your sexuality is. They want to ban discussion of that, and they want to ban discussion of sex in general, including just someone posting, hey, I'm lonely, I wish I could have a good time tonight with somebody, stuff like that. Even vague posts like that. They want to try to use their algorithm to curb and ban, which is going to lead to a lot of problems in the future because, again, like I said several times now, you can't rely on computer algorithms to make the right calls. You have to use real people to go over these things to make the right calls. But unfortunately, these websites just aren't properly staffed to handle these kind of things. And they really should, make the effort to hire more people, create more jobs, because if they're going to go through the trouble of implementing these policies, then they should go through the trouble of creating more jobs and hiring more people so they don't have to rely on computers and robots to go through posts to get rid of things that they deem to be too mature for their platform, and have real people who understand things like nuance go through it instead, because a lot of it does come down to nuance and just how people word things. And even pictures. I've seen pictures get flagged on Facebook that are innocent and don't have any nudity or anything sexual in them. Yet people post graphic violence on Facebook and graphic violence on Tumblr, yet that's not considered adult that's not considered mature, which I think is entirely ridiculous. Because I see posts, especially with child abuse and animal abuse, that shows trigger warning, that shows, kids, beat to the point where they're black and blue and cut up, and animals just really messed up and hurt and stuff like that, just badly abused to try to gain sympathy. Yet that's allowed, even though that is, disturbing and violent and upsetting. But yet, when it comes to sex, these platforms are going to go out of their way to censor and ban it. And other platforms will likely follow suit in the future. And here's why. Remember earlier in the year when I talked about a bill that got passed called SESTA FOSTA, or FOSTA SESTA, however you want to say it? They go either way. It's SESTA FOSTA. It's meant to combat sex trafficking online, but the wording is so vague, and basically it makes third-party sites responsible for anything that could lead to potential sex trafficking on their platforms. So rather than just keep a vigilant eye out for things that could be deemed as sex trafficking, these platforms are just banning all adult content in general. They're just painting everything with the same brush, which obviously isn't fair, targets a lot of people online, but it has to do with FOSTA SESTA or SESTA FOSTA. And the reason why it's happening now, instead of it happening way back when the bill was announced as being passed, is because it goes into effect in January. So don't be surprised come January if other platforms like Reddit and Twitter and even regular like websites and forums are forced to crack down on adult content. We're at the point where the only sites that are going to be safe are sites like Pornhub, and even then, the government may go after sites like Pornhub to make sure that they're not potentially participating in activities that could lead to sex trafficking. And it's also going to affect dating sites. It already has. Um, Craigslist and some of their websites deleted their personal section upon the bill being passed. And I have a feeling a lot of dating websites are going to be cracking down on the kind of pictures that people can post, the kind of wording people can use in their profiles, and they might do heavier screening on the creation of dating site profiles to begin with. And apps like Tinder and Grindr might even be no more because of this bill going into effect in January. And I disagree with this bill, and you should too, because all it does is it pushes things underground. It gives the illegal market more power and more control because victims have less avenues to come forward, and independent sex workers have less ways of going about their own business, and even legal sex workers have less means of going about their business. It pushes everything underground. It gives the illegal side more power, and it just makes everything more hidden, which just isn't right. But that it's like prohibition. It's like the war on drugs. All it does is it pushes things underground and gives the illegal market more control over the situation and more power over the situation. So if you agree with me and you live in the United States that this bill is no good, contact your local representatives, contact your senators and your government officials, and tell them that this bill that sets the FOSTA needs to be repealed. This will help save your internet, especially if you enjoy adult content, and it will help people in the sex industry in the long run in the United States. So this has been my bit of news. This has been my rant. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I love you guys. Stay awesome, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.